Welcome to AP Biology. This video is on plant defense systems against herbivores and pathogens. Herbivory, which is animals eating plants, is a stress that plants face on a daily basis in any ecosystem. Plants contain many defense mechanisms to prevent herbivores from eating them. Some of these defenses are physical. A couple physical defenses are thorns and trichomes. Trichomes are the tiny little hair-like structures that are very irritative. They irritate your skin. And plants also have chemical defenses such as distasteful or toxic compounds that they release. Some plants even recruit predatory animals that may help defend them against specific herbivores. Here you see a diagram showing this. Here you see the maize plant, and an herbivore that consumes the maize plant is this army caterpillar. When the army caterpillar consumes a piece of the maize plant, the chemicals in its saliva initiate a signal transduction pathway that's going to cause the maize plant to release these volatile attractants. These attractants bring parasitoid wasps over to the plant, and the wasps have a parasitic relationship with the caterpillars. They lay their eggs within the caterpillars, which is going to kill the caterpillar as a result. So here you see an amazing defense that the maize plant has against this caterpillar. When the caterpillar damages it, it releases attractants that are going to bring over wasps that kill the caterpillar. Plants that get damaged by insects, they can also release chemicals that warn other plants in the area that insect is around. Plants also have defense mechanisms against pathogens. They have a very primitive form of an immune system. The plant's first line of defense is its epidermis, the outer layer of its leaves and other tissues. If a pathogen does penetrate the dermal tissue, the second line of defense is going to be a chemical attack that kills the pathogen and prevents its spread. It's a non-specific defense. The chemicals, they attack all pathogens the same way. The second line of defense is much more specific, and it's enhanced by the plant's ability to recognize particular pathogens. There are two types of pathogens that can infect a plant. You have a virulent pathogen and an avirulent pathogen. Virulent pathogens kill the plant. The plant doesn't have much of a defense against it. Avirulent pathogens do not necessarily harm the plant. They usually harm the plant, but the plant is able to defend itself against the pathogen, and therefore it doesn't kill it as a result. In order to defend against avirulent pathogens, plants use gene-for-gene recognition. Plants contain resistance genes called R genes that make proteins called R proteins, or resistant proteins. These proteins respond to specific pathogens that enter a plant. These pathogens, when they bind to the R protein, this is going to initiate a signal transduction pathway that leads to a response. The R proteins can activate two different pathways. One pathway is called the hypersensitive response, and the second pathway is called systemic acquired resistance. The hypersensitive response is local, and it's going to stop that pathogen from being able to spread across that plant. It's going to induce several changes. One is it's going to cause changes in the cell wall of the plant cells that confine the pathogen, stop it from spreading. Number two, it's going to cause cell and tissue death near the infection site. So any pathogens that are in any local cells, they'll all die as a result of cell death. Finally, the hypersensitive response is going to induce the production of chemicals and proteins which are going to attack the pathogen. Chemicals are called phytoalexins and the proteins are called PR proteins. So you can see here that this hypersensitive response is localized. It's going to keep an infection where it is, and it's going to kill that pathogen. By causing cell and tissue death, you prevent the pathogen from spreading. By stimulating changes in the cell wall, you confine the pathogen. By releasing phytoalexins and PR proteins, the plant is able to kill the pathogen. System-acquired resistance is a more systemic response. It's going to take place across the entire plant, and it's going to be long-lasting. It's going to defend the plant against that pathogen. The major chemical messenger used in system-acquired resistance is salicylic acid. We commonly know salicylic acid as being the major ingredient in aspirin. It's synthesized around the infection site and is likely the signal that triggers systemic acquired resistance. Here we see an example of the hypersensitive response and system-acquired resistance. So here we see that a tobacco leaf becomes infected by a pathogen. That pathogen is going to be picked up by an R protein. It's going to dock with an R protein, and that initiates a signal transduction pathway. The first response that's going to take place here is the hypersensitive response, that localized response, which is going to stop this pathogen from spreading out across the entire tobacco plant. This signal transduction pathway is going to cause a release of a signal, in this case salicylic acid, and salicylic acid is going to initiate a signal transduction pathway that leads to systemic acquired resistance. This acquired resistance takes place across the entire plant, and it's going to protect the entire plant against the pathogen. This concludes our video on plant defenses against herbivores and pathogens.